What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and welcome to episode 9 of my quest for the perfect budget knife series. If you are new to this, you don't know, what it is we're talking about. Essentially, I started this series as a kind of, hey, the knife world has gotten really good with some amazing budget knives. In every episode of this series, I've shown some amazing budget knives that are mostly thanks to my friends over at Neves Knives. Jared and Karen Neves were so nice, lending me so many amazing budget models for me to use to do this series, and I am ever thankful for that. Thank you so much. If you've never checked out their channel, please do. I'll leave a link in the description. I'll leave a link in the comment section and pin it so that it's very easy. Take the time to go over there and subscribe. Their content is absolutely worth it. Big part of the knife community. But anyways, thanks for doing that. In all of these, in every episode, I've showed a whole bunch of budget knives and talked about different elements of them, all the different things that that I look for in an ideal budget knife. Now that a lot of these Chinese companies have figured out how to make better and better and better knives that cater more towards what we as the knife community here in 2019 expect. The end result is some amazing stuff, and I think we're close. This guy has reigned supreme for a long time. The Ontario Rat 1 and Ontario Rat 2 in D2 steel. Thank you, Alex, for letting me borrow your Rat 2. Here are the episodes we have done and the conclusions I've come to. So if anything in this episode doesn't make sense or you disagree with me, I urge you to go back and watch the episode so you can see how I came to that conclusion. Episode 1, overall size and blade length, decided on 2 different sizes, 7.25 overall and 8.25 overall to solve legality issues and blade length, corresponding with a forward choil issue, ergonomics. There's a bunch of stuff in there so you can see their handle materials. We came down to G10 steel liner, T8 body and pivot screws, deep carry clip. Deployment, definitely want a thumb stud because I want it to act as an external stop pin, similar to how the Zero Tolerance 0562 has it set up. Lock type, definitely want a liner lock. That's going to be simple, keep the costs down, easy to manipulate. Ergonomics, definitely going to be contoured scales. Simple shape and a forward choil. I'm a big fan of that. Not everybody likes forward choil, but that's where I'm at. Blade shape and grind, drop point blade. I think the simpler the better. Small flat maybe at the top, maybe something like the Spyderco Shaman. Doesn't necessarily have to be like that. That's just going to keep some strength there. The Hogue Ritter is also a very good example of an ideal blade shape, at least for me anyways. Blade steel settled on one of 3, 154 cm, N690 or D2, I think would be ideal for a multitude of reasons. You can check that again. You don't have to agree with any of this stuff, guys. The idea with the series is not to bend you to my way of thinking. It's essentially just to get you guys to know how I think and how I approach this hypothetical god of budget folding knives. Episode 8 was X Factor, aesthetics and customization and modularity. I didn't write anything in there, but essentially what we talked about in that episode is how important it is. X Factor and aesthetics, that's subject to everybody's individual opinion, but you want to set the knife up in a way that's easy for the aftermarket to create custom parts so that if the knife becomes popular, possibly the reason it becomes popular is because it is supported by a massive aftermarket that's creating parts. Now, somebody in the comment section brought up a good point. They said you're kind of defeating the purpose if you buy a budget knife and then you buy $50 to $100 worth of additional parts. Completely agree, right? But I think the draw to a knife that is supported by a massive aftermarket, right? The idea of thinking, hey, I could buy this knife and then down the road when it gets a little boring because I'm kind of a snobby knife enthusiast, I can spice it up because there's so many aftermarket parts available. In the same token, set the knife up to accept modular parts. If you have a large and a small, make the large pocket clip modular with the small pocket clip. A good example is the Hinder XM18 3 and 3.5 inch and XM24. All the parts are modular. That's a good idea. It keeps everything sort of easy to change out, easily accessible, things like that. So today, what's the topic today? I actually put this over here and didn't bring it up. Today's topic is, episode 9 is the little details. There are a ton of little details. This thing sticking up in my notebook is actually a bookmark where I've written a bunch of things down we're going to talk about. Little details are very important. Little details are often the things that are overlooked that will bring a knife crumbling down. All of us have watched Nick Shabazz's reviews, and how often do we climb this sort of, oh boy, it's getting good, this is going to be a good one? No, there's something that literally kills it for everybody, right? There's some stupid little thing. And he'll even say like, hey, this isn't a reason not to buy it. You might still enjoy it, but it's something that we're like, oh, now that I'm aware that it's there, it just kills it for me, because you're going to think about it every time you put it back in your pocket, every time you go to make a cut, every time you deploy. Whatever the thing is, it could have been avoided by some little tiny, little thing. Now, I'm not going to say in this episode that I'm going to cover every last little thing. I'm going to cover all the stuff that's really important for me that I think should be right? And also at the same time, remember, guys, I don't make knives. I don't manufacture knives. I've never worked with industrial equipment, CNC, any of that. And I'm also not an engineer or a designer. I don't know anything about that. So a lot of this, what I'm saying, is easier said than done. It's basically me like standing in front of a genie saying, here's what I want, just make it happen, right? So just take everything I say with a grain of salt. Everything that you're seeing here that actually has an Amazon affiliates link, if you see something in this video, you're like, I want that. I know a lot of you guys are watching this because you've got the itch, right? You're watching this on the weekend. A lot of people like to watch this on their TV, and they're on their phone shopping for knives on the weekend, right? I'll help you scratch that itch. There's a ton of links down in the description. In fact, I've got it sorted out. Some of the most popular EDC knives of all time mixed with some of my favorites. There's also EDC gear down there. There's also tools and accessories and knife maintenance stuff, and everything's down there. Right off the bat, let's talk about, since we are creating a knife that's actually meant to be used, let's just get the jimping right? I mean, I am not a fan of knives that do not have jimping if they're, now this is the mini bag litter. It doesn't need jimping, but a knife like this, I've seen knives this size, like the Spyderco Capara. Love that knife. Why doesn't it have jimping? I want to be able to lock my thumb in up here. It's a locking blade. Given, the idea that we do kind of want to ramp, or one of my ideal blade shapes would be like on the Hogue Ritter, you can see that this ramp doubles the effectiveness of the jimping because you're pushing forward and down, right? Really simple. This is an example of effective jimping. It's nicely chamfered, nicely rounded off, but it's effective. This is a pretty good example of effective jimping. A little bit sharper, but it's fine. Civivi Backlash, again, an example of effective jimping. I love Spyderco's jimping. Oh man, it's nice and kind of short and spiky. Love that. Let's get the jimping right. Speaking of getting texturing right, I think it's really important that at least one of the, if you're going to do a coated blade or a painted blade, because it's a budget knife, and then you're going to do another blade, a tumbled finish, for two reasons. One, it's going to hide scratches decently well. You can see here on my Hogue Ritter, that's not a budget knife, but we're using it as an example. It's doing a decent job of hiding these scratches. Now, a lot of people are like, why do you care if it's going to be a work knife? I don't know. I just do. I like the pretty factor. I like my knife to look good, and I'm taking all this time to build this hypothetical perfect piece of budget equipment, this cutting tool. I want it to look nice in my head, right? It also will knock these edges down, right? A lot of knives that are not, that's actually not a good example because that has a pretty good setup there. What's an example of a knife with some sharp edges? Here we go. A knife that I'm going to use for a positive. So up here, we've got kind of a sharp edge. This is a satin finished edge. Anytime I can do that and scrape my fingernail off, see how it's taking my fingernail with it? It's a little bit too sharp. On a tumbled blade, it's knocked down enough to where it won't do that. It's just a little bit nicer to the touch, and when it's getting cut through the material, or when you're cutting through material, something abrasive like cardboard or semi-abrasive, it's less likely to get hung up in little spots like that, Now, I understand that has a lot to do with the blade geometry and the grind and the shape of the blade, stuff like that. But getting those corners knocked down really helps. If I have to put my finger in a weird position, if I'm going to make a cut where I'm going to kind of hold the blade like this and push, I don't want to mess with those sharp edges. I just want it to be knocked down. So that's why a tumbled blade, I think, is a good idea. Another big thing, now this should be pretty easy, but because I want a forward choil on there, right? Now, when you have a situation like this on the Civivi Backlash, the finger choil is actually the sharpening choil. But this is a flipper. This is a non-flipper. You can see how Spyderco did this. Choil, but there's a nub here, which I like, but there's no sharpening choil. This makes this really difficult to sharpen. I actually love how Spyderco did this. Love it. They just need to, a lot of people will actually take, do they just use a Dremel or something, and they create a little sharpening choil. That's probably what should have happened. I think Sal Glesser's or Eric Glesser's, whoever, yeah, Sal Glesser's thing was, we add a little sharpening choil there and it gets hung up on stuff. I think that's what he said, but I think, you know, considering that this is meant to be a user, obviously, right? I mean, we're trying to create this like budget user. It's going to get used. It's going to need to be sharpened. That's just going to making sure that there's a, I mean, it sounds obvious. Making sure there's a sharpening choil in there is a big deal. If you're going to have a setup like this will work just fine. There's going to be a sharpening choil. If you're going to do it, I'm almost kind of speaking to any future companies, I guess, who might watch this and think, how would he do it? Which is silly, because that's very unlikely. But I'm just saying, if we have a situation like this, where you've got a nub, which I like, because it keeps my finger from running up on the blade, then you have to actually go in and add a separate sharpening choil. Next up, the blade or the thumb studs, because remember, we've got thumb studs on this guy, right? It needs to be completely out of the cutting path. You can see here the Lanyard Hole does a pretty good job, but if I were to cut straight down, it's going to run into those thumb studs. Now, the nice thing is that because we want a forward choil, or because I want a forward choil, use the XM18, which is not a budget knife at all. You can see here the XM18, which is exactly where I got this idea of wanting the thumb studs to be present and at the same time out of the cutting path and at the same time doubling as external stop pins. It is completely out of the cutting path. So you get the full benefit of the part of the blade that's meant to cut. You get the control and the ergonomic benefit, and you get the pressure mitigation benefit of the thumb studs acting as external stops. Everybody's happy, or at least all the little people in my head who are collectively trying to create this knife are all happy. So that's a big deal. It sounds silly, but yeah, I mean, like, here's an example. Let me give you guys an example of a knife that did not do that very well. Here we go. We've got thumb studs in the cutting path. The coveted Rat 1. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was trying to make a dramatic point. No, that's actually completely out of the cutting path. What is the knife that I was going to use as an example where it is completely... there is a knife out here where it's completely in the cutting path. I can't remember exactly what it is, but... I don't have it out here. The Benchmade, one of my favorite Benchmade knives of all time, the Benchmade Super Freak. I love that knife. I think that might be Benchmade's best knife ever. But the freaking thumb studs are directly in like 20% of the cutting path, so you have to cut at an angle. That's fine. The Freak is the Benchmade Super Freak is an excellent knife, but that's one of the flaws there. It's like, geez, why? Come on, guys, you know. But they're trying to make it convenient. You know, when it's in the resting position, you have to consider that, where you're going to deploy it, right? I'll be the first to admit the XM18 studs are not in an ideal position to fire it, but it does work, right? I'll trade off the ease, a little bit of ease of deployment to get those thumb studs both out of the cutting path and at the same time directly in position to act as external stop pins. Moving out here, we talked about this in hardware. Let's just do T8 all the way around on body screws and the pivot. T8, 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 T8. Easy. There's 6 of them. You don't have to change the bit out. It's a strong enough bit. It's a strong enough head. We're good. Easy, right? Domed T8 heads. I don't like these. These look better. I think they might, I don't know if they're a little more durable or not. I just like the domed one. Let's not put too much of an emphasis on how shiny everything looks. You know, like, I don't know if the flat ones are more expensive because they're flat, or we don't have to do anything dressy like this. We don't have to do anything fancy like this. Just a simple domed off pivot and all the little bodies. I feel like those are strong. They're common. They're probably inexpensive. They're going to be just tough enough. I think that's the way we should go. Chamfering all the way around. I do not like sharp edges. I don't think anybody likes sharp edges. These are a little bit blocky. They're nicely knocked down, but they're a little bit blocky, right? I like this, and I like how the Rat is, even though it's a little bit blocky. The best example is the Shaman. Oh my goodness, did they do this well? This is not, it's not full contouring. It's not like the Rat, or I'm sorry, the Lanyard Hole. It's not fully contoured. It's flat on top, and then there's just a lot of chamfering. They did kind of the same thing on the ZT0562, right? Just a little more here. That's perfect. Perfect. It should be pretty easy to do. Don't believe me? Look at the Civivi. They're doing it on the Civivi. It's the same thing. This is not expensive to do. It's literally the exact same thing. Yes, please, let's leave the lock-in and, or exactly how well you're locked into the knife. Let's leave that up to the shape of the handle, not worry so much about texturing or sharpness holding. No, let's knock down the parts of the knife, or smoothen out the parts of the knife that should be smooth, and make the handle an ergonomic shape that is at the same time going to lock your hand in when you're in a wet, dirty, slippery environment, right? That's what I think. Pocket clip position, very important. I want a pocket clip that's going to carry fairly deep. It doesn't have to be ridiculously deep. It needs to be deep enough that the knife is going to drop into my pants, but it's still accessible. It should be easy to get in and out of the pocket. Another reason I want the surface of the G10 that we're inevitably going to be using smooth is so that the pocket clip slides over the pants. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm sliding it in and out. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't, all this rough texturing shouldn't be there, because it makes it difficult to get the knife in and out of the pocket. At the same time, I do not want a bill that sticks up like this. A really good example of a pocket clip is this MXG deep carry clip. God dang, they did that right. Everything but the screws being recessed, but even without the screws being recessed, this thing is it carries so deep. It's got a nice, you know, I pinch it right here, and if I miss, oh well, my finger catches right here and I still get it. The bill sort of drops and swoops up. It's up enough to go over a thick texture like jeans. I'm wearing jeans right now. It's up enough to go over that, right? But it's not sticking up so high that it's going to, you see that there, this aggressive texturing has grabbed some material on my jeans and pulled that away. I don't want that. I want fraying on the pants. I don't want it to be that tight. That's not the fault of the clip. That's the texturing that I don't want. But it's not so high that it's going to break off, right? Because if this is a budget knife and it's likely going to be made in China, I don't want to have to mess around with getting another clip. I just want the clip to be a good design in the first place, not likely to snag on anything, not going to be tearing anything up, not likely to come off, right? Which brings me to my next point. The best way to do a clip, if you're going to do 2 vertical screws like this, don't lay the pocket clip on top of the material, because it's likely to develop play. Now, the Praxis is made well enough that it hasn't done that, but you guys remember my CRJB Crag? CJRB Crag. That thing had the same type of setup and it was moving around. Cut a slot into the material, right? Like on this guy, even though this is a different style of clip, cut it into the material so that you only have to use 1 screw or 2 screws, and then it can't move because the G10 is holding it in place, right? Either if you're going to do a deep carry clip, recess those screws so that they're not sticking up. What's a knife that's, I got that example. Did I really not bring one out here? Oh boy. Well, the ZT0562 is pretty good. That dome head screw is recessed enough, and that dome head is a dome head, so this pocket clip does not have anything slowing you down. It's a good pocket clip design. It's a deep carry design. It goes, it's up against a smooth material like titanium, and that screw is not getting in the way. Perfect. And it's fixed into the knife. Perfect. That's a great clip. It doesn't have to be a hyper expensive material. You can see there, this pocket clip has seen better days, and it is completely fine. Do what ZT did there, or similar, and we're going to be just fine on the pocket clip. Now, what kind of goes along with the pocket clip position is also the position of the lanyard hole, right? And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? That should be really easy to figure out. Yeah, you'd think. Let's use the prime example for this. One of the only problems with the Spyderco Para 3 was the position of the completely and totally necessary lanyard hole. I'm not convinced the knife even needs a lanyard hole, but we're gonna have it there to cater to people who want to have a lanyard hole. Remember, we're trying to cater to as many people as possible. Not specifically just the hard users, not specifically just the gentlemen, it's not specifically just, you know, people who have to have knives under a certain blade. No, as many people as possible. We're not going to get everybody happy. We're going to get as many people as possible happy. This is a great example. This pocket knife had originally, get an original Spyderco clip out here real quick, which I should have had ready for the video. And I don't. Oh my gosh. I have no idea what it is. Doesn't matter. You guys know what the original Spyderco pocket clip looks like. It hung so low that the knife carried like this, and that much was sticking out of your pocket, just to make room for that lanyard hole, because they couldn't move these screw holes up high enough, because that's where they chose to put the lanyard hole. the lanyard hole needs to be moved over here. That's why I ended up switching out to the MXG deep carry clip, because it's got a slot cut so that it uses the same holes as the original clip, but it carries much deeper and it still moves out of the way for the lanyard hole, making it functional. In the original PM2, which I know that this isn't supposed to be the PM3, it's the Para 3. It's supposed to be its own thing, but I mean, come on. It's just a shorter version of the PM2. In the PM2, they had a beefier handle, and they just moved this over. Here's some examples of setups that do well. That works. That works. It's weird. This is okay, right? Doesn't carry super deep, but it works. Civivi's got it figured out. Even, you know, Kaiser here on this Doman. I mean, that works. It's part of the back. There's a million ways to do this. Let's not screw the back of it up by trying to do something weird, right? It should be easy. Just don't make the pocket clip come so far down to make room for a lanyard. I mean, pocket clip first, lanyard hole second, right? I mean, I'm okay with it not being on there, but again, we got to cater to, I want to cater to everybody. So we got to put it on there. The ZT, they were just like, nah, we don't need it. But yeah, let's put one on there. Let's just make sure that it's out of the way and being respectful of the pocket clip, which is a lot more important. The cutout for the liner is such a big deal. Moving on to the next thing. Access to this liner. I cannot tell you how many designs I've seen that just sort of forget that that is even something that matters. All of these knives out here have little spots for that. And a lot of people are like, that's so dumb. Like, are there even knives that still do that? Yeah, actually, this, by the way, this is the Yobotool Silverback. I really like this knife. We haven't reviewed it yet. But the Yobotool Aurora did not have a cutout whatsoever to engage the liner, and that really sucked. It really, I mean, it was hard enough to get my finger in there, but considering how liners wear over time, right? Eventually this liner is going to wear all the way over. Well, if I didn't have room to engage it from right here, then it would be a mess. I'd have to push my finger in there and it would, you know, get pinched. It would just be a mess every time I tried to disengage it. No. Liners will wear over, especially if you're going to be using this thing hard. I always want to be able to interact with it. And it does not need to have insanely aggressive jimping on it. Like this actually looks more aggressive than it is. It's actually easy to, I mean, a little bit of texturing is fine, but honestly, I'd be fine with just some rounding like that. Oh God, the TS49, the Tucson TS49. Yes, guys, don't worry. It's down there in the description. Have a look. So many cool things down there. There's something for everybody down there, seriously. But the TS49, oh man, that's great. Nice rounded edges right there. Raised a little bit to interact with it. It's so comfortable to disengage. This knife is so impressive. Easy, right? Lots of great examples. Make room for that. I like shadow boxed liners. I don't know that this is a small deal that needs to be the case, but it goes right along with, you know, you can round the edges of everything, get the chamfering in there, and it creates this nice aesthetic look from the outside where you can see the liners, right? People want to do that thing where they bronze their own liners with heat. Yes, you can do that with steel, and you can add that little emphasis on there yourself. That's nice. It creates a nice contrast or opportunity for contrast without costing a lot of money. In fact, it shouldn't cost anything extra from a manufacturing standpoint, I think. Not everybody's going to like that. That's a little detail that I like, that I'm tossing in there. It may not cater to everybody the way that a lot of these other things do. Detent strength is very, very important. We're not going to use the Benchmades as an example because they have axis locks. They act differently. But I'll use the XM18 again. You know, everybody knows this. Well, not everybody knows, but Generation 4, in Generation 4, they did a run of non-flippers, and the detent was super light. Now, they had just started to come out of their stigma of not having strong enough detents, and then they fixed their flippers, right? In Gen 4, they actually did fix their flippers. They added detent strength, and now we're in Gen 6, and there's no issue with the detent whatsoever. But when they did their Generation 6 run of non-flippers, Rick Kinder actually made a point to talk about this. You can look it up on his non-flipper spear point video, which I actually used to own here very recently. He said, we strengthened up the detents to these from the last time because a lot of people were talking about, you know, going to deploy it and they could actually shake it out of the handle. Now, I half the knives that I own, I can shake. No, 3/4 of the knives that I own, I can shake out of the handle. Do I think that that makes them dangerous? No. Look at this, Ritter Hogue. I can shake that thing out of the handle. I still would trust the Ritter Hogue with my life, absolutely. But I still want the detent strong enough to resist some minor kind of, you know, if I'm up on a roof or I hop down off of an AC unit on outside of my house. If I'm standing on something I shouldn't be standing on and I got to jump off of it, right? I don't want the jump or the impact to shake the blade out of the handle in my pocket. Now, it's unlikely considering how I would carry it, which is like this, up against the seam of my pants. But in the wildest of situations, the knife moves around on my pants, it goes over here, and I hit the ground, and the blade comes out, and nope, don't want to mess with that. Use your imagination, that's why. Get the detent strength right. The other reason the detent strength matters is so that you can do this. I don't like knives where I go, meh. Don't like that. Positioning is going to have a lot to do with that. But a good detent, a good position, mixed with a good position of the thumb studs, will, and of course, weight and mass of the blade, because it's harder to do on a smaller knife. But it results in a good action, a good crisp action, and a good dependable action. It's very, very important. I'd say the detent strength to look towards, definitely the Rat. The Rat has a perfect detent strength. I cannot, I cannot shake the blade out of the Rat. Definitely. My finger was in the way of that last one. Here, we'll give it a good go. I can a little bit. It took quite a bit of effort there, but just to be organic with you guys, I don't want to fake anything on camera. That's about how much force I want to occur, right? I'll deal with that to get the detent strength here and the good action because it's comfortable, right? What goes right along with that is actually the shape of the thumb stud. This is a good thumb stud. It's not super aggressive. It's pretty rounded off, but at the same time, it's going to catch your thumb, and it'll do a decent job of catching your thumb if you're wearing gloves, which is a likely factor in this. You know, I mean, we're essentially creating a work knife. Why shouldn't we make it accessible to people, or the thumb studs accessible to people who are wearing gloves? Moving on here, we already kind of talked about the position of the studs and the shape of the studs. That was the next thing I had marked down. I think something else that's really important, and this is a big one, and it's actually my last point, or the last one that I have written down. Everybody knows about the frustrations of a double clutch. Now, it's not talked about as much on the 0562 because everybody loves the 0562, including me. But the 0562 has a little bit of a double clutch. See what's happening there? It's not quite clearing the detent ball. Right here. Here's the detent ball right there. Now, I'm using my thumb as a guard. Kicks down to here. Now I'm going to go to release, move my thumb out of the way. Now, if I don't keep my finger right here, then it falls back behind the thing, the detent ball. Then I have to kick it close, and it does that guillotine thing. That's not good. That's not what we want. We want a knife that is easily clearing the detent ball. Right here. Here's the actual Hinder XM18. Does not have a double clutch situation. Clears that detent ball. Now, a lot of 0562 fans, and again, guys, I'm an 0562 fan. So, oh, you get used to it. You adjust. Everything's fine. You know? Yeah, you're right. And a lot of you are going, why are you talking about flippers? You don't want a flipper, you want a thumb stud deployer. It's because in a situation where you're going to close it with one hand, you still have to consider that. It has to clear the detent ball, and you have to be able to get your thumb out of the way and move it. Even more importantly, what part of the knife comes down on your finger, because on a flipper, you don't have to worry about the blade coming down because it's the flipper tab that stops it there, right? There is no flipper tab, obviously, on a knife that is a dedicated thumb stud deployer. So you do kind of have to worry about that on a knife that's utilizing a thumb stud. So like on the Kaiser Domen, for example, one of the things that I don't like is the fact that this little nub here is not really a flipper tab, and it's pretty easy for my thumb to miss that, and oh, look at that. Blade coming down on my finger. Your fingernail is going to block it a little bit, but hard enough force, and I guarantee you that little part on the sharpening choils is sharp enough to pierce your fingernail, or at least make it kind of a, it's not a pleasant thing to think about, right? There are a couple knives on this table that do a good job of catering to people. in that situation. Number one is the rat. Now imagine here we have an actual finger choil, which would make this knife almost perfect. Look at this little spot right here. Boop. That little spot I can get to catch my finger every single time, and the blade is not touching my finger. Excellent. Love that. I forget what this is. I'm going to show you guys the deal there. If you guys like this knife, this is a great budget knife. It's got this little lock down here, but it's down in the description as well. It also has an excellent little, look at that. Oh, that little spot right there. What an awesome, if that was not on purpose, then that was just a fortunate mistake, but it's also the spot that catches the stop pin. It has two jobs. One, I'm sure was, it was intentional, catching the stop pin. The other thing it does is, oh, it catches my finger right there. Perfect. Perfect. Now, on this knife, the thumb stud is not positioned exactly right, but there you go. There's the element we want. That we want another little nub that's hidden by the handle, but when it comes down, oh, look at that. It catches your finger, and then you can go ahead and do this. And at the same time, it's clearing the detent ball. All of that stuff is very, very important to me. This knife that we're creating should be able to, we have not talked about the Paladin at all. Paladin's down there too. It's got a little bit of a double clutch. I'll have to remember that when I do the review. This knife should go into the pocket easily. It should carry well. It should come out of the pocket easily. It should deploy easily. It should cut well. It should be able to disengage easily. It should go back into the pocket easily. You should be able to pull this knife out of your pocket, use it, and put it away without even having to think about it, right? The rat is almost that. It's got a few quirky things, but it's almost that. All of those little details are so important to me. So little things that just make everything so much better. And I think all of these elements are totally reasonable on a budget knife. And everybody always says, what do you mean? How are you defining budget, right? The last episode's price. Don't worry, we're gonna talk about that. But this knife, all of these features should be easy to do under $100. And I think pretty reasonable for even around the $50 range. But we're going to talk about price and everything involved with that in the final episode. Guys, this was a very long episode. I wanted to get everything out, talk about all this stuff. I hope you guys are continuing to enjoy this series. It's almost over. It's kind of sad because we've been doing this for a long time. But if you enjoyed this episode, like always, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, don't forget to click on this middle complex logo right here and subscribe with your notifications turned on because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.